I'm Troy Reynolds.
And I'm Tricia Cave.
You're about to go on the educational record.
Welcome to the Educational Record, a YouTube series where we grill candidates for Texas state offices about their positions on key educational issues so you can make an informed choice when you vote.
And as you make that informed choice, we hope that you will join us in the block vote. If you don't know what the block vote is, we'll cover that a little bit more later on in this video. In the meantime, let's get on to our main event. We'd like to welcome Ms. Brandy Chambers, candidate for House District 112 in the Texas House of Representatives. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming. So let's get started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a mother of an 11-year-old who is a 6th grader in the Garland ISD school system, and I am an employment attorney in Dallas area. I am originally from Oklahoma. Don't hold that against me. I got here as soon as I could. I promise. I promise. I am married to the love of my life for the last 13 years. It's been a while. And in 2018, I was a first-time candidate running against a 5-term incumbent, and in a race that everyone said I was going to lose by 14 points. I was able to almost win by just a little gap of 1,100 points, or 1,100 votes, excuse me. And so I am back again to give it another try, make sure I kick it, across the field goal line, and make some change for public education. That's what I want to do.
Okay, yeah, I remember that race in 2018. Give us a little overview of your philosophy on public education.
My philosophy of public education is really simple. It should be fully funded. It should be fully accessible. And it should always be fully supported legislatively. That's my simple philosophy.
Easy to follow.
Yeah,
And, you are rated friendly by Texans for Public Education. And
yes, thank
for
you.
those that don't know, we rate candidates as friendly, neutral, or unfriendly to public education based on any research we can find. We know what friendly means to us, but I'd like to hear it from you. What does friendly to public education mean to you?
To me, and to receive that distinction, what it means, like my responsibility for that rating is to always fight for preserving and protecting public education, to always fight and hopefully get more financial support and also make it stable financial support for public education. And I don't mean just for active schools, but I also mean for teachers, retired teacher healthcare, all of that. That also we should protect any attempt for privatization or otherwise defunding it. So to me, being friendly to public education means you're going to look over it, you're going to protect it, and you're going to fight for it.
Fantastic.
That makes a lot of sense. What do you see as the top 2 or 3 major issues in public education?
One is sustainable funding. We have been very roller coastery with it in the past 2 decades, at least as far back as I see it. We need to make sure that we establish a level of consistent funding and find ways to grab more revenue and make sure that the revenue that we are allegedly allocating towards it actually gets there, right? And then so that's the one thing that is just absolutely critical to me is kind of how we've been willy-nilly about some sources of revenue that were supposed to be earmarked for education that weren't, how we are a certain group or faction in Texas wants to find ways to take money out of that by supporting alternative systems. And that's just absolutely something that I'm against and want to make sure that we clear up going forward.
Let's expand on that if you don't mind. One of the problems that I've had, and I'd like to hear you speak to this, is it's not simply people trying to dip into the pot with alternative systems. For example, the lottery money, for the longest time, it didn't go to public education at all. And then when it became a big enough political hot potato, they did start channeling some money from the lottery into education, but the state then backed up their contribution by an equal amount. So it's a net sum zero gain. Can you speak to those factors a bit, please?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the major things that I would like to correct once I get into office, and I believe that some of my colleagues agree with me, is kind of like, for instance, the recapture. There is a large sum of money that comes back to the state from recapture. The original intent of that recapture was to supplement the property poor districts within our state of Texas. Well, what has happened is that instead of that money going straight from, public education back into public education, it goes into the general fund, where the legislature can use that money for anything it wants. It is not earmarked, it is not directed, and it is not held safely. So it's not held in escrow or otherwise where we could be putting it towards public education. In addition, if you will look, like in 2017, 2018, that the amount of money that the state gets back in recapture happens to almost equal the exact same amount that Texas spends funding charter schools. So instead of
what a coincidence.
Isn't that weird, right? So instead of that recapture money, which in theory is a good thing. It's a good thing. It's what we're doing is to support those underfunded schools. It's going to completely support something absolutely different and separate. It's it's separate and it's not equal, right? And so those are things that I'm talking about, in addition to, like, something that my opponent voted for was in favor of vouchers, where they are saying that if your child goes to a private school or a non-public school, that basically you would get a tax credit for the tuition that you would pay to go to a different alternative school. Well, by doing that, because schools get funded on a per student basis, you are taking money away from that public school. And that's what I'm talking about, is like there's these factions that are trying to use all these little different ways to get that money out of the public school system and into an alternative system, whether it be charter schools or whether it be private schools.
In a semi-related subject, as a conservative, one value that's very important to me is local control.
Yes.
We have seen a steady migration of the power base for a school district moving away from the local community and to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Where should the control rest? Where is that balance between local and state control? Is there a balance, and are we where we need to be right now?
It's a very complicated question. And, I knew that you were going to ask me something close to it, and then because I wanted to inquire about what issues about local control. And let me give you a little context of where I'm coming from, is that I myself, although I would not qualify myself as a conservative, I am very for local control, very much supportive of local control in a lot of areas. However, I do believe that there are certain things that we need to set as a base standard that benefits our community in the state of Texas to ensure that we are successful. And some things in public education, I believe, are one of them. One, we need to make sure everyone gets equal access and equal funding, right? I don't want my locality to take away funding from my local school to give it to a private school, right? So that we need to have uniform. Also uniform, we need to have, okay, what's in the curriculum? I'm for, localities adding to the curriculum, but we need to at least set a base that everybody agrees we're going to learn math, we're going to learn science, we're going to learn English, language arts. There's certain bases that I think that we need to have as a set uniform within the state of Texas. If localities want to add on, build on, great. But here's another place that I do believe in strong local control and that has been highlighted by this pandemic. is I believe that my superintendent should have the right to determine whether or not they have face-to-face learning or remote learning, or if there is an incident in the school to where there's contamination, they have the ability to shut it down, take a break, reallocate time to do something to be able to deal with that particular crisis. I don't agree with the state setting guidelines and mandates for a one fits all in a time of crisis. That definitely needs to rely on the locality, because what's going on in Garland may be completely different about what's going on in Rusk, Texas, and completely different about what's going on in El Paso when it comes to things like that. So that's where I believe I'm a firm believer in local control on those issues.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All states say, all politicians say that they love public education at election time. We're aware of that. Your opponent says that. Teachers and the rest of the public ed community are tired of empty platitudes. What concrete moves can you outline in your plans that are more than simply campaign fluff?
And I can definitely tell you this because I've already talked to a certain political group about crafting this bill. Is moratorium on charter schools. Like I said, good or bad, Texas cannot afford two different school systems. We just can't afford it, right? So we need to stop creating more of a hemorrhage on our already limited access to revenue. So I want to immediately put a moratorium on it. Additionally, I would like to rein in some powers for the Commissioner of Education and say, okay, Commissioner, when it comes to charter schools, we need to have a set system of how we evaluate where they go, if they're going to go anywhere, how they're ruled, what's going on with them, and it needs to be done by more than one person. So we need to have more transparency and actual investigation about it if we decide to continue with the charter school system. So that's something I really want to look at. Additionally, I would like there to be a study about the effectiveness of charter schools within the state of Texas, especially when it comes to how they're using their money. Is there student equity? Is students of color left out more times than not? Are there any implications about services with those with disabilities? These are all things that we have relinquished control or visibility over in this charter school system. And I think we need to recapture that and get that back into our visibility so we know fully where our money is going.
Let's go back to your statement about Commissioner Morath before I move on to the next question. I'd really like to explore that for a moment. There has been a growing voice of discontent within the legislature at some of the powers that Commissioner Morath has demonstrated during the pandemic, and the fact that he has unilaterally been able to make moves that possibly should be within the purview of the legislature and not a single unelected official. Example being supplanting state money with federal money, the ESSER grant that was provided supposedly to supplement schools' revenue, and instead now became a part of the foundational money that we use for normal operations. There's been a growing voice within the educational community that position being appointed by the governor politicizes it too much, and that perhaps it should use the same model that school districts do, where with the superintendent and school board, maybe the commissioners should be under the State Board of Education rather than the governor's office. How do you feel about that?
I completely agree with that. 1000%. Even though I am seeking a political position, I do not agree that certain positions, especially certain positions with the ability to exert a lot of power, should be done by political appointment. As you can see in some areas in the national government where you put a political appointee into an area in which they have no expertise or experience at all, you can see that things start to kind of fall apart. I fully believe that people given especially powerful positions should be based upon their expertise, their familiarity, their achievements, things that they've accomplished, and definitely be heavily within that world and promoted from that world to that position. I also agree with having a board have oversight of the power of that position. I get very uncomfortable, regardless if we're talking about education or military or criminal justice or any other subject matter, to where one person in one position can exert such power without sort of any, counterbalance and oversight. It just makes me really nervous. I'm all about checks and balances. Right. So I believe that, especially when state this large, public education is absolutely critical to its success. So this should be even more of a heightened sensitivity to the vast amounts of power within any position, which could literally destroy it if given the opportunity.
Okay. One of my favorite questions to ask, because it's very open-ended and really opens some things up. Many politicians that during campaigns, you'll hear them talk about public education is broken. Now, I don't concede that fact. I think if there's a problem in public education, it's that we don't tell people the positive things that are going on in the field often enough. We've allowed other people to control the dialogue. But right. For argument's sake, let's go ahead and say public education is broken. What's broken, and how do you intend to fix it?
I'm like you, Troy. I don't believe it's broken. I don't believe it's broken at all. I think, yes, it has issues. Most things do. I think there's definitely room for improvement. Absolutely. But is it broken? No. I think we've got, on whole, a really good public education system within the state of Texas. What is the issue is, again, the faction and the derelict it has received in governance over the past 30 years. And when I'm saying in governments, I'm talking about that the legislature doesn't want to fund it. The legislature looks for ways to take out a little bit more and more from the public education to starve it. And that's what we have done. We have starved public education in the state of Texas for decades. And it creates problems. We've started its infrastructure. We have broken promises to teachers. We have broken promises to students. That's the issue. It's not the system itself. It's how the system is being governed. And that's why it is absolutely critical that people and groups like you bring to light these issues and educate people on why it's so important to know who you're voting for, what they stand for, and if they've already been in office, hold them accountable for their votes.
Okay, well, one more final question. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to present to the viewers on public education?
I think I pretty much covered the broad sense of public education. Like I said, I'm a mother of a student that is in public education right now in the state of Texas. I am the daughter of a public school teacher. My father spent 32 years in the Oklahoma public education system teaching children at the blind school. And so I understand, not only from a parent's perspective, but also the daughter of an employee of a public school education system, the importance of keeping our promises to our students, to our teachers, and to our retirees. My dad now lives on a limited income because of, he was a teacher, he's now retired, and having that stability is absolutely critical to his existence, because hopefully he's got another 20 years with me, and I want to make sure he sacrificed, and teachers now sacrifice living a flush lifestyle because of their passion for children and education. And our promise to them is to, hey, you sacrifice now, we're going to make sure that you are taken care of when you're retired. And we have not been living up to that promise. And that's something I want to make sure that when we get in the legislature, we keep our promises. That's all.
Thank you very much. Brandy Chambers, House District 112. Brandy, what counties or cities are in
Sure.
your...
So it's Dallas County. All of it's in Dallas County. It's the north part of Garland, east part of Richardson, the Dallas County portion of Saxe, and 2 precincts in North Rowlett, all within the northeast borders of Dallas County.
Well, Brandy, we hope those people will get out and vote for you. We appreciate you joining us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you, everyone,
for
for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy.
As promised, a little more about the block vote. If you've never heard about the block vote, you're not alone. It's a new process that we espouse here at Texans for Public Education. As a group, we analyze the records of candidates and incumbents alike in regards to public education. We then assign a rating of neutral, friendly, or unfriendly to each candidate, regardless of party. All 31,000 members have a vote in those ratings. Once the ratings are set, we use them to unify our vote into one large block of votes. We do this only with state offices. Members are free to vote as they wish for any other office. We do not tell people how to vote. Instead, we come together and make the decision as a group. If you would like to know more about how the process works, please visit our website at texansforpubliceducation.com. We hope to see you on the next episode of On the Educational Record. Bye-bye.